The light in the high chamber of the Vexian conclave was a fluid thing, a sentient ocean of soft, crystalline luminescence that ebbed and flowed with the collective emotional resonance of the beings assembled within. It was a light born of ancient stars, focused and filtered through the very heart of their homeworld, a testament to a civilization that had mastered energy, matter, and the elegant, predictable dance of the cosmos. Today, however, the light was troubled. It flickered with discordant hues, shimmering with the colors of anxiety and indecision. At the chamber's center, suspended in a gravity well of his own making, floated High Arbiter Thalios. His crystalline form, a complex lattice of interwoven facets, absorbed and refracted the chamber's anxious light, making him appear a fractured, uncertain god. Before him, a holographic sphere of deepest black hung in the air, a perfect void in the otherwise luminous space. It represented the edge of their sovereign territory, a border that had been inviolable for millennia. And just beyond that border, a single, silent icon glowed with a defiant, alien simplicity, a human warship. It had a name, a designation transmitted on open channels with a stark lack of pomp or ceremony that the Vexians found deeply unsettling. The Odyssey. It had arrived without prelude, without diplomatic overture, without the customary displays of technological prowess or threat that usually heralded the arrival of a new species at their doorstep. It simply appeared, a sliver of dark, unreflective metal against the tapestry of the void, and had remained there utterly motionless for 3 full rotations. It did not respond to hails, yet its energy signature, a strange and turbulent hum that defied conventional analysis, confirmed it was fully operational. It was a silent, unblinking sentinel, and its presence had fractured the conclave's unshakable serenity. The silence in the chamber was a pressure, a physical weight that settled upon the assembled arbiters. They were beings of pure thought and ordered energy, their forms mere physical anchors for consciousnesses that communed in the silent language of resonant frequencies. Yet today, their communion was a cacophony of fear. "It is a weapon," Strategos Kalin resonated, his thoughts sharp and percussive, causing the light around him to pulse a violent crimson. His own form was denser, more angular than Thalios's, built for action and decision, not contemplation. "Its silence is a threat. Its stillness is a challenge. The failure of the scout vessel Stellar Drift is undeniable proof of its hostile intent." The memory of the Stellar Drift was a fresh wound in their collective consciousness. A small, swift vessel, dispatched to perform a standard deep-spectrum analysis of the human ship against the explicit counsel of Thalios himself. The Vexian way was to know, to categorize, to understand. Ignorance was the only true sin. The Stellar Drift had approached the Odyssey, activated its primary deep scan array, a device capable of peeling back the layers of a star's core or mapping the quantum foam of spacetime itself, and had simply ceased to be, not destroyed, not vanished. Its physical form remained adrift and cold, but its crew, their consciousnesses, the intricate resonant patterns that defined them had been extinguished, not scattered, not damaged, erased. The ship's final data burst was not a record of weapons fire or an energy surge. It was a stream of pure, incoherent chaos, a torrent of sensory and conceptual data so overwhelming, so paradoxical, that the conclave's finest analysts had suffered cognitive dissonance merely attempting to parse a fraction of it. It was like trying to read a single character from a library that had been compressed into a singularity. "Hostility implies intent, Strategos," came the soft, chiming resonance of Loremaster Vela. Her form was slender, almost ethereal, the light within her a gentle, inquisitive sapphire. "We have no evidence of intent, only of an effect we were warned about." This was the detail that gnawed at the heart of the conclave's fear. The humans had not been entirely silent. Shortly after their arrival, they had broadcast a single, looping message on a broad, unsophisticated radio frequency, a medium the Vexians considered laughably primitive. The message was translated into 1,000 galactic tongues, including the Vexians' own ancient mathematical language. It was concise and clear. "For your own safety, do not perform deep energy scans on our vessels. We are here in peace," a warning, not a threat. A statement of fact, delivered with the calm certainty of a being advising another not to touch a hot surface. The crew of the Stellar Drift, in their arrogance and their desperate need to quantify the unknown, had ignored it. They had touched the star, and they had been unmade. "A warning that is indistinguishable from a threat is a threat," Kalin countered, high as crimson light flaring. "It is a passive weapon of terrifying power. They have engineered a field that annihilates the consciousness of any who attempt to understand it." This is the ultimate act of aggression, to weaponize knowledge itself, to make the very act of observation an act of self-destruction. They are hiding something, Arbiter, something so profound that they would kill to keep it secret. Thalios remained silent, his facets slowly rotating as he processed the opposing arguments. He remembered the Cathar Imperium, a species they had encountered eons ago, whose biology was based on chaotic, rapid mutation. The Vexians had seen this chaos as a disease, a flaw in the universal order. They had deemed the Cathar a cosmic plague and had moved to sterilize their worlds. Only at the last moment, as their world sterilizers powered up, did they realize the Cathar's mutations were not random. They were a form of conscious, collective evolution, a way of adapting to a universe that was far more dynamic and violent than the Vexians' models had ever predicted. The Cathar were not a plague. They were the ultimate survivors. The Vexians had nearly committed genocide out of a failure of imagination. The shame of that memory was a permanent, cold shadow within Thalios' light. He would not make the same mistake with these humans. Your logic is sound, strategos, Thalios finally resonated, his tone a deep, calming hum that soothed the chamber's agitated light. If we assume they are like us, if we assume their psychology follows the predictable paths of logic, dominance, and strategic concealment, but everything we have learned about this species suggests they are different. He gestured a tendril of light toward the holographic sphere, and images began to coalesce within it. They were fragments, intercepts from the humans' own scattered, unsecured data networks, another baffling trait. For a species capable of crossing the void, their information security was porous, almost non-existent. It was as if they did not fear being known. The images were a dizzying, contradictory storm. One showed a human in a pristine white suit tending to a sick child of another species, their touch gentle, their face a mask of profound empathy. The next showed a planetary surface scoured to glass by human weaponry, the aftermath of one of their own internal conflicts. Another depicted a vast, intricate structure of pure art, a sculpture in a nebula that sang with silent, complex beauty. It was followed by a recording of a human political debate, a savage, shouting match of primitive emotion and raw ego. They were creators and destroyers, healers and killers, philosophers and barbarians. They composed symphonies that could make a Vexian's core resonate with the beauty of creation, and then waged wars over strips of dirt or points of dogma with a ferocity that defied all reason. They are a species at war with itself, Vela chimed softly. Their entire history is a chronicle of this internal conflict. They reach for the stars while simultaneously poisoning their own cradle. They codify laws of universal compassion and then violate them with breathtaking cruelty. They are the ultimate paradox. A paradox is a weakness, Kalen retorted. A flaw in logic. It is a sign of an unstable, immature species, a species that cannot be trusted. Their very nature is a threat to the order we have so carefully maintained for 1,000,000 years. This scan effect is likely a product of their chaotic engineering, a weapon they barely understand themselves. We must establish a quarantine. We must project a perimeter of absolute exclusion and deliver an ultimatum. Withdraw, or we will dismantle your vessel, piece by piece, from a distance where your passive weapon cannot harm us. Thalios turned his focus back to the silent ship, the Odyssey. Dismantle it. Kalen's solution was always so simple, so clean, the application of overwhelming force. But force was the tool of the unimaginative. It solved problems by erasing them, leaving no room for understanding. The Vexians had not survived for eons by being the strongest, but by being the wisest. They outthought their enemies, they outplanned galactic cycles, they outlived stars. What if the answer was not in the ship, but in the warning? For your own safety. It was not a phrase of aggression. It was a phrase of care. A phrase one might use to a child reaching for a blade. Could it be? Could this terrifying power be something the humans were trying to protect others from? No, strategos, Thalios declared, his voice resonating with finality. The light in the chamber stabilized, aligning with his authority. We will not meet a mystery with violence. We will not answer a warning with an ultimatum. We have made that error before. The cost was almost our soul. He turned his focus to Vela. Loremaster, you have studied the ancient texts, the prophecies of the first mind. Is there anything that acts of a species like this? A paradox that can unmake the observer. Vela's sapphire light deepened in concentration. There are fragments, High Arbiter, obscure passages. They speak of the sentience of the maelstrom. A form of life that does not exist as a single, coherent thought, but as a storm of countless, conflicting thoughts. A consciousness that is not a still lake, but a raging ocean. The texts say that to gaze into it is to be consumed by it, not by malice, but by its sheer, boundless complexity. It was always considered a philosophical concept, a theoretical impossibility. A consciousness cannot endure such internal contradiction. And yet, Thalios hummed, his gaze fixed on the human ship. Here is a species that has seemingly mastered it. They live it, they are it, and they have built starships. The silence that followed was different. The fear had not vanished, but it was now mingled with a profound, terrifying awe. The humans were not just another variable to be added to the grand cosmic equation. They were a new form of math entirely. The debate could have continued for cycles, the logical arguments spiraling into infinity, but it was at that moment that the universe chose to act. A new icon appeared on the holographic display, a tiny vessel detaching from the dark hull of the Odyssey. It was small, unarmed, its energy signature barely registering above the cosmic background. It was moving slowly, deliberately toward their homeworld, toward the conclave itself. "They are sending an envoy," Vela resonated, her light shimmering with a color Thalios could not immediately identify. It was not fear nor excitement. It was something closer to reverence. A single shuttle unescorted. Kalen's thoughts were a blast of disbelief and suspicion. It is a trick, a probe, a new form of weapon. Or, Thalios said, his own light solidifying into a calm, resolute gold, it is an invitation to speak, an act of trust, and we will honor it. Prepare the receiving chamber. I will meet them myself. He held the strategos' gaze. We will meet them with diplomacy, Kalen, not with weapons arrays. We will seek to understand this paradox, not to destroy it. As the High Arbiter issued his commands, a deep, primal uncertainty resonated within him. He was a being of logic, his mind a perfect, crystalline structure. He was about to come face to face with the maelstrom. And for the first time in 10,000 years, Thalios, High Arbiter of the Vexian Conclave, felt the cold, unfamiliar touch of genuine dread. He feared not what the humans would do to him, but what he would learn about the universe he thought he so perfectly understood. The diplomatic chamber was a space designed to inspire tranquility. Unlike the grand, data-rich environment of the High Chamber, this was a place of stark simplicity. The walls were smooth, opalescent surfaces that emitted a soft, neutral light. The air was still. There was no data stream, no holographic display, only a simple, circular platform in the center. It was a space stripped of all variables, a pure environment for pure communication. Thalios floated at one side of the platform, flanked by a silent Kalen and Vela. He had chosen to meet the human in this way, without the grandeur of his usual gravity, a gesture of equality. He had waited. The Vexians were patient. They could wait for centuries if needed. But the anticipation was a new and uncomfortable sensation. A shimmering portal of light opened on the far side of the platform, and the human stepped through. The first impression was one of jarring biological inefficiency. It was a bipedal creature, encased in a simple, dark blue uniform. It was soft, asymmetrical, and fragile. Its movements were governed by a clumsy series of levers and pulleys made of flesh and bone. Its sensory organs were clustered crudely on a head that swiveled on a fleshy stalk. By every Vexian metric of evolutionary elegance, it was a failure. A messy, chaotic organism, yet it carried itself with an aura of profound calm. The human came to a halt before them. Its face, a canvas of soft tissue, was unreadable to them, but the deep-set eyes held a steady, unwavering gaze. It performed a slow, deliberate inclination of its upper body, a gesture their archives identified as a formal sign of respect. "High Arbiter Thalios," the human said. Its voice was not a resonant frequency, but a series of controlled atmospheric vibrations, yet the translator drone converted it into flawless Vexian thought speech. "I am Ambassador Aris Thorn. I thank you for receiving me." The directness was startling. No titles for his companions, no preamble, no recitation of his own credentials or the power of his civilization. Just a simple statement. "You are welcome, Ambassador Thorn," Thalios resonated, keeping his own tone perfectly neutral. "Your arrival has caused considerable debate within the conclave. Your silence, followed by this visit, is in use. You'll approach to first contact." "Our silence was a measure of respect," Thorn replied, his voice calm and even. "We detected your civilization's nature from a great distance. You are a people who value observation and analysis before action. We did not wish to contaminate your initial data with our own narrative. We chose to wait for you to observe us, to form your own hypotheses, and then to ask your own questions." Kalen's light pulsed a sharp, incredulous red. "You presume to know us so well? You watched us, analyzed our society from afar, and decided how we would react. The accusation was sharp. Thorn turned his head slightly to face the strategos. The movement was small, but it commanded attention. We do not presume strategos, we observe. We saw a civilization of immense age and stability. A society that has not waged a major war in 1,000,000 of our years. A people who solved the chaotic variables of existence and built a sanctuary of order. We concluded that such a people would be cautious, that they would value data above all else, and that they would be deeply, fundamentally disturbed by that which they could not measure. The accuracy of the assessment was so precise it was unnerving. Kalen fell silent, his light receding to a sullen ember. Vela's sapphire glow brightened with fascination. "You are correct in your assessment," Thalios admitted. "And we are disturbed. Your vessel possesses a defensive property we cannot comprehend. It destroyed the consciousness of our survey crew, an act of aggression that cannot be ignored." The ambassador's expression for the first time shifted. The corners of his mouth tightened, a subtle change that the translator drone tagged with the emotional concept of regret. "It was not an act of aggression, High Arbiter. It was a tragedy we tried to prevent. Your crew of the Stellar Drift was lost because they did not heed our warning. We broadcast it for one reason, to prevent the very thing that happened." "A warning of a weapon is still a discussion of a weapon," Kalen interjected, unable to contain his suspicion. "What is its nature? How does it function? Why is it so vital that you shield your ships from simple observation?" Aris Thorn held the strategos' gaze for a long moment, a silence that felt heavier than the one the Odyssey had maintained for days. Then he looked at Thalios. "It is not a weapon. It is not a technology. It is not a shield. To explain it, I must first ask you to abandon your core assumptions about what a starship is." Thalios felt a subtle shift in the room's energy. This was the nexus point, the reason they were here. "Proceed, Ambassador." "Your ships, your technology, your very consciousness, it is all based on a principle of ordered, coherent systems," Thorn began, his voice taking on a professorial, measured cadence. "A Vexian ship's computer is a marvel of crystalline logic. Its crew exists in a state of resonant harmony. Data flows in clean, predictable pathways. When you scan a vessel, you are mapping that system. You are reading its blueprints, its energy states, its logical architecture. You are reading a book written in a language you understand." He paused, letting the statement settle. "Scanning a human warship is not like reading a book. It is like trying to drink the ocean. Our ships are not merely machines crewed by individuals. They are ecosystems, symbiotic gestalts of mind and machine." "Gestalts?" Vela resonated, her curiosity overriding all other protocols. "A collective consciousness? We have encountered such species. They are powerful, but their mental architecture is always unified, singular in purpose." "That is the crucial difference, Loremaster," Thorn said, a flicker of something like a sad smile touching his lips. "Humanity is not unified, it is not singular, and that is our greatest strength and the source of the danger. The crew of a vessel like the Odyssey are not subsumed into a collective. They remain individuals, every single one of them, with their own memories, their own hopes, their own fears. Their loves, their hatreds, their moments of transcendent joy and their descents into private despair. The engineer who worries about his child back home. The pilot who dreams of nebulae. The tactical officer who carries the scars of a past battle. The cook who finds solace in creating nourishment. The artist who paints the void in her spare time. Billions of moments, experiences, and contradictions, all existing at once in parallel." He took a step forward, his eyes sweeping over the three Vexians. "Our technology does not suppress this, it embraces it. The ship's core processing system is not just a computer, it is a neurodynamic interface. It links every crew member, not just their conscious thoughts, but the entirety of their subconscious. The raw, unfiltered chaos of the human soul. The ship does not just think, it feels. It dreams, it fears, it hopes. It is a vessel powered by." Paradox. The concept was so alien, so fundamentally contrary to Vexian philosophy, that Thalios felt his own thought processes struggling to form a coherent model. A machine powered by emotional chaos, a system that weaponized psychological instability. It was insane. "When your deep scan array touched the Odyssey," Thorn continued, his voice dropping to a somber, grave tone, "it did not simply read data. It bypassed the physical and attempted to map the conscious and the subconscious simultaneously. It opened a direct conduit. What flooded into the minds of your crew was not weaponized energy. It was everything all at once." He lifted a hand, palm open, as if holding an invisible weight. Imagine Arbiter. Imagine receiving the full life experience of 1,000 beings in a single microsecond, not as a story, not as data, but as a direct lived reality. The agony of a soldier's wound, the euphoria of a scientist's discovery, the quiet contentment of an old man watching a sunset, the mindless terror of a child in the dark, the burning shame of a betrayal, the fierce, selfless love of a parent. All of it. Every contradiction, every messy, illogical, beautiful, and horrific piece of what it means to be human, poured directly into a mind that has only ever known harmony and logic. Thalios recoiled. Not physically, but a tremor ran through his energy field. He could almost feel it. A tidal wave of pure, unstructured existence. A storm of sensation and emotion that had no logic, no order, no purpose other than to simply be. His mind, a perfect crystal, would not be able to contain it. It would shatter, not from an attack, but from sheer existential pressure. The crew of the Stellar Drift had not been killed. They had been drowned. "It is not a shield," Thorn said softly. "It is our nature, the very thing that makes us who we are. We cannot turn it off any more than you can turn off your logic. We can only warn others not to gaze into it too deeply. We are sorry for your loss, High Arbiter, truly. But we did not cause it. Your own desire to know, to quantify the unquantifiable, is what led to their end." A long, profound silence filled the chamber. Kalen's aggressive crimson light had completely vanished, replaced by a deep, troubled violet of confusion. He was a warrior. He understood weapons of energy and matter. But this was a battle of philosophy, of fundamental existence. How do you fight an enemy whose very soul is a weapon they do not even wield? It was Vela who finally broke the stillness, her sapphire light soft with a nascent understanding. "So, you are not hiding anything. The reason we cannot see inside your ships is because there is too much to see." "Precisely, Loremaster," Thorn confirmed with a nod. "We have nothing to hide. Our flaws, our history, our contradictions, they are all open to you should you choose to learn of them, through conversation, through cultural exchange, through the slow, patient process of building trust. But you cannot simply take the knowledge by force. You cannot map a soul with a sensor array." Thalios finally understood. The arrogance, it was not human arrogance, it was Vexian arrogance. They had approached the humans with a tool designed to measure the physical universe and had pointed it at a metaphysical one. They had tried to analyze a symphony by measuring the decibels of each note, ignoring the music they made together. The humans were not a paradox to be solved. They were a reality to be experienced. "You said you are here in peace," Thalios resonated, his tone now devoid of all accusation, filled only with a vast, weary gravity. "What is it you seek from the Vexian conclave?" Ambassador Thorn's demeanor became even more serious. He clasped his hands behind his back. "We seek understanding, and we seek allies. The universe is older and more complex than either of us have fully grasped. There are signals in the dark, patterns in the static that even our most advanced systems are only just beginning to perceive. We are explorers, Arbiter, but we know we cannot explore what is coming alone." He paused, his gaze meeting Thalios's. "We believe our two peoples, the masters of logic and the masters of chaos, could, together, achieve a balance, a perspective that could face the true darkness between the stars." The offer hung in the air, a concept as vast and staggering as the revelation that had preceded it. An alliance with this storm of a species. It was unthinkable, and yet for the first time Thalios felt it might be necessary. They had built a sanctuary of light and order, but they had done so by closing their eyes to the infinite, roiling chaos that was true existence. They had become brittle, perfect and brittle. The humans, forged in chaos, were anything but. They were adaptive, resilient, unbreakable, because they were already broken in 1,000 different ways. To prove his point, to bridge the immense gap that still remained, Thorn made one final, extraordinary offer. He proposed a demonstration, not a full scan, but a filtered link. A single, curated stream of human experience, transmitted through a safe, low-bandwidth interface that Vela's mind could process without being overwhelmed. A single memory to convey a single concept. Kalen protested, calling it a trick, a psychic attack. But Vela, her thirst for knowledge overriding all fear, agreed. Thalios, seeing no other path to true understanding, gave his consent. A small device was brought forth, a simple circlet of human metal that interfaced with Vela's crystalline form. Thorn himself supervised the connection, his face a mask of intense concentration. "I am going to share with you a memory," he explained softly to Vela. "It is not a great battle or a momentous discovery. It is a small thing, but it is, I believe, the core of our paradox. Are you ready?" Vela's sapphire light pulsed in affirmation. The link was established. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Vela's form began to shimmer violently. Hues of color Thalios had never seen before flashed across her facets. Joy so pure and bright it was painful to behold. Grief so deep and dark it seemed to absorb the chamber's light. Fear, hope, love, an entire spectrum of existence compressed into a few seconds. The link severed. Vela shuddered, her light dimming to a faint, trembling glow. She was silent for a full minute. Kalen moved toward her, his energy field flaring with concern, but Thalios held him back. When Vela finally resonated, her thoughts were not a clean, chiming frequency. They were layered, complex, like a chord played on an unfamiliar instrument. They were tinged with emotion. "I saw a fire," she whispered, her thought-speech strained. A building of primitive materials was burning. There was a smaller being, a child, trapped inside. A human in heavy protective gear, a firefighter, walked into the flames. The fear, the heat, the pain, it was absolute. I felt his terror. He was certain he was going to die. She paused, her form still trembling. But he kept going. He found the child, and I felt something else. A wave of feeling so powerful it eclipsed the fear, the pain, everything. It was not logic. It was not a calculation of risk versus reward. It was a duty, a love, not for that specific child whom he did not know, but for all children, for the concept of innocence itself. He carried the child out, and his own body was burning. And as he emerged into the cool air, I felt his relief, his joy, his pain, all at once. And I understood. Vela turned her gaze to Thalios, her light now shining with a new, profound clarity. They are not a paradox high arbiter, they are a resonance. They hold opposite truths in their minds simultaneously, and it does not break them. It makes them stronger. Their capacity for destruction is matched only by their capacity for self-sacrifice. To understand them, we must not measure their ships, we must measure their hearts. The Loremaster's testimony fell upon the chamber with the force of a physical blow. In that moment, the entire Vexian worldview, a structure a million years in the making, cracked. Kalen's rigid certainty was shattered, replaced by a stunned, humbled silence. Thalios felt the weight of his own misjudgment, the legacy of the Cathar, and saw the path forward with terrifying clarity. He looked at Aris Thorn, who had watched the entire exchange with a quiet, patient empathy. He saw not a messy, inefficient organism, but a representative of a species of terrifying, beautiful depth, a species that could walk through fire. "Ambassador Thorn," Thalios resonated, and for the first time his thought-speech carried the warmth of genuine respect. "Your demonstration has been illuminating. It seems we have been blind. We built a universe of light, but forgot that true sight requires one to understand the dark. We accept your offer of alliance. We will learn from you. And perhaps you will learn from us." A new era had begun. The Vexian Conclave, the ancient, logical sentinels of the galaxy, had opened their doors to the chaotic, emotional newcomers from Earth. The two peoples began a slow, careful exchange. Vexian engineers, guided by human intuition, learned to build systems that were more resilient, more adaptable. Human philosophers and artists, given access to the Vexians' vast library of cosmic history, found new depths of inspiration and context for their own turbulent existence. The alliance was fragile, often fraught with misunderstanding, but it was growing. The Odyssey remained at the border, no longer a source of fear, but a symbol of this new union. A silent guardian, its internal maelstrom now understood not as a threat, but as a promise of untold potential. Months passed. The initial tension gave way to a productive, if still cautious, partnership. Thalios and Thorn met regularly, their conversations ranging from metaphysics to galactic policy. It was during one of these meetings, deep within the High Chamber, that the universe decided to reveal another, far greater secret. They were observing a real-time star chart, a vast holographic representation of the galaxy, when an alert chimed. It was not a Vexian alert. It was a soft, insistent tone from a human data console that had been integrated into the Conclave systems. "Ambassador, what is it?" Thalios asked, noting a sudden stillness in Thorn's posture. Thorn did not answer immediately. He was staring at a specific point on the galactic map, a region of empty space far out on the rim, a place the Vexians had long ago catalogued as uninteresting void. A complex series of equations and waveform analyses scrolled next to the console's alert. The human's face was pale, his expression one of intense, focused disbelief. "We've been watching that sector since our arrival," Thorn said slowly, his voice low. "The Odyssey wasn't just waiting for you, it was functioning as a listening post, part of a network our fleet has been building for decades." "Listening for what?" Kalen, also present, resonated with his old, familiar suspicion. "For something we weren't sure existed," Thorn replied, his eyes still locked on the screen. A ghost, an echo, a pattern hidden in the deepest layers of cosmic background radiation, something your sensors, with their focus on coherent logical signals, would have filtered out as noise. He tapped the console, and a sound filled the chamber. It was not the clean resonance of Vexian communication, nor the vibration of human speech. It was a sound that seemed to defy the very laws of acoustics. A low, rhythmic pulse, like a colossal heart beating across impossibly vast distances. Interwoven with the pulse was a faint, complex melody, a signal of such profound mathematical elegance that it made Vexian algorithms seem like primitive scratches in the sand. It was ancient, unimaginably so. The data suggested it had been repeating without deviation for longer than the Vexian race had existed. "What is it?" Vela whispered, her light a shimmering aurora of awe and fear. "We don't know," Thorne admitted. "We call it the lament. For a long time it was just a theoretical pattern, but the Odyssey systems linked to the collective intuitive power of its crew were able to isolate it, to finally hear it clearly. It's a signal, but it's more than that. It's structured like a language, but it's also degrading, fading. Every cycle a piece of its complexity is lost." He turned to face them, and the calm, diplomatic mask was gone. In its place was a look of raw, unvarnished gravity, the look of a man staring into an abyss. "We've just finished the primary translation of the signal's core repeating component," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "It isn't a greeting, it isn't a beacon, it's a warning and a boundary." He pointed to the source of the signal on the star chart. Then he expanded the view, pushing it out beyond the galactic rim into the silent, terrifying expanse of the intergalactic void. The signal was not coming from within their galaxy. It was coming from the darkness outside. "The message is simple," Thorne stated, the words falling like stones into the perfect silence of the chamber. "Do not cross, do not look. The silence is a sanctuary. We failed. We are gone. The great filter is not behind you. It is ahead." A cold that had nothing to do with temperature washed through the high chamber. The Vexians, a race that had conquered their star and believed themselves masters of their corner of reality, stared at the map of the void. They had spent 1,000,000 years perfecting their garden, while just beyond the wall, a universe of unknown predators had been waiting. They had feared the chaos inside a human warship, a chaos born of life, love, and struggle. But the signal spoke of a different kind of chaos. A final, all-consuming chaos, a silence and ending. Thalios looked from the chilling message to the face of the human ambassador. He saw no fear in Thorne's eyes. He saw grim determination. He saw a flicker of that same fire Vela had witnessed in the firefighter's memory. The fire of a species that walked into the flames not because they were not afraid, but because it was their nature to face the dark. He finally understood why the most advanced races avoided scanning human warships. It was not because of a weapon. It was because to truly see humanity was to see the capacity for infinite, paradoxical courage. To see a soul that could contain a maelstrom and not break. And in the face of the great, silent, hungry darkness that awaited them all, Thalios knew with absolute certainty that a maelstrom was exactly what the universe needed.